Welcome everybody to the Nerdy Dad Podcast. My name is Levi Bullard, or DM Dadbot on social media. Today we bring you the 10th episode on Barbarians. Now, Barbarians are a lot of times thought to be just mindless rage monsters, kind of like the Hulk, that they're only fit to be out in the wild, in the tundras or the forest, with animals and beasts. And that's also true a lot of the times. But you tend to have the civilized, or the ones that are in civilization, just fighting in, say, your fighters guilds, out in coliseums, being those warriors who just don't take any crap, and they still don't really fit into the civilian culture, that civilized lifestyle. So no matter what, it's always that civilization versus the wild aspect that you have with barbarians, because barbarians, out of all of the classes, are probably the craziest and most savage. They thrive in combat. They enjoy being inside combat and just fighting for their lives. You have to be a mindless rage monster if you're wanting to play a barbarian, but that's kind of what the lust is. The draw to this class a lot of the times is that you can just be a ferocious and battle hungry monster of rage. And you hear a lot of people bring up rage so often when it comes to barbarians, and that's because of a feature called rage that we'll get into in a little bit. Now, I don't really have to keep going into what a barbarian is in theory, because you kind of understand. It's a warrior who's just savage, brutal, and just goes out and attacks. Doesn't have to be strategic like the fighter necessarily. They're just frontal assault. So we're going to talk about their mechanical features, and we'll talk about what abilities they get. So they get the biggest hit die of any of the classes, which is a D12. They have proficiency with light and medium armor, plus proficiency with shields. They have proficiency with simple and martial weapons, but no tool proficiencies. And their proficiency in saving throws are for strength and constitution. You get your option of 2 proficiencies from animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, or survival. And then your starting loadout, you can choose from any martial melee weapon. Then you get as your backups either 2 hand axes or any simple melee weapon, or any simple weapon. And then you get your explorer's pack and 4 javelins. Now we get to talk about rage. So rage, you get rage at level 1. You're allowed to rage as long as you're not wearing heavy armor. Sorry for those who just wanted to be a knight charging into battle. But if you're raging during combat, which it lasts a minute, you get advantage on all of your strength checks and your strength saving throws. And if you're using a melee weapon that requires you to use strength, then you gain extra damage on top of that if you do hit. And that increases with your barbarian level. So every time you level up, taking another level in barbarian, you get that additional damage every single time. And then probably one of the most useful out of them, aside from that, is your resistance to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. And that is just insane. That is essentially showing how you can go into a mindless rage, charge in, not worry about all of the attacks that are actually hitting them. Aside from, like, magical ones, of course. At level 1, you also get unarmored defense, which means if your barbarian is not wearing any armor, no light, medium, then you get your AC starts off at 10, plus your dexterity, and your constitution modifier. And on top of that, you can also use a shield to boost up your AC. So not only do you get your dex, your con mod added on top of an average of 10, but you also can rock a shield, which will give you another +2. Then at second level, you get reckless attack, which is kind of that mindless, throwing all concern for defense out the window with the attack of ferocity. Make your first attack on that turn, you can decide to act recklessly and use reckless attack. Doing so gives you advantage on melee weapon attacks using strength during this turn, but also any attacks against you get advantage too. So your enemies still get that bonus, but it gives you it. So weigh your options there, whether or not you think it's useful or not in that situation. At second level, you get Danger Sense. It gives you advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. To gain this effect, you can't be blind, deafened, or incapacitated. You obviously get your ability score increases at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level for them, but you choose one ability score of your choice and increase it by 2, or 2 ability scores increase it by 1, obviously the normal stuff. As normal, you can increase your ability score above 20. Then we go back to 5th level, and you get an extra attack. So if you take the attack action, you can actually attack twice. Fast movement at 5th level, you gain an increase of 10 feet when you aren't wearing heavy armor, which if you're playing a barbarian, why would you be wearing heavy armor? Feral Instincts. At 7th level, you honed your skills so that you have advantage on your initiative rolls. Additionally, if you're surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you can actually act normally as long as you enter rage at the beginning of that turn. Beginning at level 9, you can roll 1 additional damage die when determining extra damage for a critical hit. That increases to 2 dice at level 13 and 3 dice at level 17. That's on top of the one you get already, so woo-wee! Get those crits. Relentless Rage, starting at level 11, rage can keep you fighting despite grievous wounds. If you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging, you don't die outright. You can make a Constitution of 10 saving throw, and if you succeed, you don't drop to unconscious, you drop to 1 hit point. Each time you use this feature, the DC increases by 5, so the second time would be 15, third time would be 20. After you finish a short or long rest, the DC is reset to 10. Barbarians also have Persistent Rage. At level 15, your rage is so fierce that it ends early only if you fall unconscious or you choose to end it. Indomitable Might. At level 18, if you make a strength check and it's less than your strength score, you can just use your strength score instead of what the check was. At level 20, you get Primal Champion. You embody the power of the wild, and your strength and constitution scores increase by 4. Your maximum for those scores also increase to 24. So even if you were already maxed out at 20, which by level 20 you probably should be, you can now increase them both to 24. So now we get to talk about what path are you going to take as a barbarian, because at level 3 you get to choose your path. We're going to go over one example of those, which is the path of the Berserker. For some barbarians, rage is a means to an end, and that ends is being violence. The path of the Berserker is a path of untrampled fury, slick with blood. As you enter the Berserker's rage, you thrill in the chaos of battle, heedless of your own health or well-being. At level 3, you get Frenzy. Starting when you choose this path at your 3rd level, you can choose to go into a frenzy when you're in a rage. And if you do so, for the duration of your rage, you can make a single melee weapon attack as a bonus action on every turn after this one. If your rage ends, you suffer 1 level of exhaustion. That's still pretty rough, so pay attention to whether or not you want to use that with the level of exhaustion at the end. Mindless Rage. At 6th level, you can't be charmed or frightened while raging. If you're charmed or frightened when you enter a rage, the effect is suspended for the duration of the rage. So, obviously, you can use rage as a means to save yourself from charmed or frightening, or to pause the effects. You get Intimidating Presence at level 10, and you can use your action to frighten someone with your Menacing Presence. Basic, you scare the shit out of somebody with how tough and brutish you are. And then last of all, for that path, you get Retaliation at 14th. When you take damage from a creature that's within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. Essentially, it's like you get a free opportunity attack, but it's just if they do damage to you. And that's at 14th level, so that's pretty good. You get a free hit back every time that they hit you, and they're within 5 feet. So, in conclusion, guys, the Barbarian is a wild, ferocious, rage-seeking beast who is a frontline tank if I've ever seen one. If you guys have any questions about the Barbarian or need to correct me on a mistake that I made, let me know in the section below. What class do you want me to cover next? So we got Paladin, Rogue, maybe a Sorcerer? Let me know.